Thank you so
Morning.
much. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here, Krishnaphani ji, for taking the time, and Ravi for hosting it. Thank you all. We'll start with the school prayer. Ravi, will you take it on, please? Thank you.
No, Ram is next to me. I'll call him.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. May we request Ram to say the school prayer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The hidden life. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other.
Thank you so much, Ram. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much. Krishnaphani ji, can we start?
We have the Gayatri Mantra.
Yes, we can. Malati?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Asato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you so much, Malti.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Krishnaphani ji?
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All the other participants may kindly mute themselves. Yeah. Thank you so much. We will take up the those who are joining may kindly mute themselves. Bina Nirulaji, kindly mute your speaker. Thank you. Thank you. We will start with the second verse. Yeah. Are you able to see the screen?
Adjust the screen, sir.
Yeah, this is okay?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay.
Little more down, sir.
I'll move it. I'll move it. No, but this is the I'm focusing only on the second one.
Okay.
The second verse. Okay.
Okay.
Now, last time we have seen that the first verse is very clearly told us for whom this is being composed and for whom this particular text will be really beneficial. That means those who have purified themselves by austerities and are peaceful in heart and calm, and who are free from cravings and are ardently desirous of liberation. Okay, this is what was the meaning of the first verse. And there, very clearly we have seen what is tapas, and with reference to Bhagavad Gita, what actually constitutes tapas of the body, tapas of the speech, and tapas of the mind, whereby one is greatly attenuated and who has attenuated all his evil tendencies to a great extent, who is peaceful without cravings and has an ardent desire for liberation. Mumukshutva. This mumukshutva has got two dimensions. If you remember what we discussed, there are two dimensions to it. There is the urgency for transformation and the intensity required for transformation. So mumukshutva actually is not a desire per se. You can't really classify it as any other desire. Here, it is more a case of urgency and intensity. Both are required, and then only it is called as mumukshutva. And very interestingly, for those who have read the small book called At the Feet of the Master, in that the great masters have thought it fit to translate this idea of mumukshutva as love. They have called it as the great universal love, which is the driving force for the entire creation and also the driving force to bring about that great transformation whereby one is truly liberated and free. So that's the idea. Now we come to the second verse. The second verse says, Bodhonya sadhanebhyo hi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vaknivad jnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. Just as the fire is the direct cause for cooking, so without knowledge, no emancipation can be had. Compared with all other forms of discipline, knowledge of the self is the one direct means for liberation. This is the very general translation of that verse. We will see very particularly what it actually means. Anya sadhanebhyaha bodhaha sakshat mokshaika sadhanam, which means when you compare it with all other sadhanas, the sadhana related to awareness, awakening, or what is generally called as self-knowledge. This knowledge is not like ordinary knowledge. So compared to any other forms of disciplines, because generally from a traditional point of view, we talk about bhakti as a marga, karma as a marga. That means devotion as a way or action as a way to liberation and all that. But here the author very categorically tells us that as compared to any other form of sadhana, the one direct or the only sadhana that can truly liberate, can be truly liberating, is what is called as bodha. Bodha means awakening. Bodha though it is generally translated as knowledge or being aware of it or something like that, but the root meaning is awakening, bodha. And from this bodha only the term Buddha comes. The term Buddha is derived from bodha. That means the one who is awakened. They also use the term Prabuddha. Prabuddha means one who is truly awakened. So the awakening of self-realization or bringing about that transformation through awakening as compared to any other form of self-discipline, this is the best, or this is the direct one. Sakshat. Sakshat, if you remember in some other context I have mentioned, it also means direct and immediate. Sakshat means right in front of our eyes. That means we are looking at it with open eyes. These eyes are not the physical eyes, but the spiritual vision they are talking about. So it is something which is direct and immediate, whereby a person is awakened. And without this awakening, there cannot be any true liberation. And a beautiful simile is given here. It says Pakasya Vakhnivat. Pakasya Vakhnivat means Paka means cooking. Vakhni means fire. Can there be any cooking without fire? No. You can't cook anything unless there is fire. Fire in some form or the other. If in the modern days, you can talk about microwave ovens or something like that, where you don't really see the fire, but there is a fire in some form or the other. That means that which generates heat and light. Okay. So just as fire is the direct means required for cooking, so also self-knowledge or Atmabodha is the only direct and immediate sadhana for awakening of intelligence, or what we call as liberation. So without, just as without fire you cannot have cooking done, similarly without bodha, moksha is not possible. That is the meaning of it. Now let us see the beauty of this simile. Paka also means ripening. Paka means ripening, something which ripens, comes to a state of ripening. And Vakhni is a symbol of that intensity, which we have been talking about. Fire is a symbol of intensity. And anything that comes into contact with that fire is burnt. So Vakhni also symbolizes tapas. And only tapas can lead to ripening. That is the deeper meaning of this term, Pakasya Vakhnivat. Paka, the ordinary meaning is cooking. There is a term called pakva. Pakva means ripened. Paripakva means ripened in all possible manner. Ripened on all sides. That means totally ripened is called as paripakva. That also comes from the same root called pach. Pach, the root word is to digest. And the secondary or derivative meaning of it is something which is cooked, which is easy to digest. So that's how it comes as paka. And also the term pakva and paripakva, all of them are derived from the same root. So the ripening or becoming perfect can only happen with that intensity of the inner fire, whereby anything and everything that is inessential is completely burnt out. Only the real thing that needs to be cooked properly is cooked. Everything else, the impurities or what is not required, all that is simply evaporated. Like mostly what happens with cooking, lot of this water in it is evaporated, and whereby the substance gets beautifully cooked. So this is a beautiful symbolism that is used here to represent the direct and immediate nature of fire, and this fire being a symbolic representation of tapas, which burns all things which are inessential, and also it leads to ripening. A person is paripakva. A person becomes paripakva means one who has matured, who has ripened to an extent whereby the fruit, whatever ripens beautifully, is obviously very tasteful. So, bodha, the awakening, the coming to a state of self-knowledge, that means one understanding oneself in totality, is the means for direct and immediate liberation. This is the important factor that is being brought out here, because as I said, I have deliberately given the title as Atmabodha, an intuitive appreciation. One has to intuitively appreciate the idea and the concept and the necessity of it, which implies these two things, direct and immediate, direct and immediate. Because the mind has a tendency to postpone things. The mind has a tendency to convert something which is experiential into a mere idea or a verbal statement. That is the danger of the mind. The mind converts something into an idea, a concept, an opinion, a kind of verbalization of it, and thinking that it has understood. It remains in that state. So here, the role of the mind has to be substantially minimized, and one has to delve deeper into that experiential state of being, which brings about that urgency for a direct and immediate experience, which is self-liberating. It is not something you desire for or you are asking for. The very awakening brings about transformation. It is not a kind of a sequential thing. It's not sequential. The very awakening is transformative by nature. Like a lamp. You can't distinguish the two things as separate, as though you bring a lamp and then that lamp progressively removes darkness. No. The very lighting of the lamp is the dispelling of darkness. There are not two processes. And there is no element of time, one happening first and the other happening next. No, they happen simultaneously. So this is the idea which has to be very deeply rooted in our intuitive faculty, and bring about that seriousness in us, the urgency and the immediacy of it for transformation. Here, the very subject which we are talking about is Atmabodha. One has to bear this in mind very clearly. Atmabodha is self-knowledge. And this knowledge is no ordinary knowledge. See, the difference between ordinary knowledge and what we term as a transformative knowledge or spiritual knowledge. These are only words again. Please hold on to the deeper meaning of it. From the worldly point of view, knowledge is something you acquire. For example, I study mathematics or physics or biology or political science or some other subject. I acquire knowledge there. From a mundane worldly point of view, it's an acquisition. It's an accretion or addition to what you are. That is from the worldly point of view. But from the spiritual perspective, knowledge is transformative. And in fact, it is transformative to the extent that you become that. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of the Brahman becomes Brahman. Here you have to understand the subtlety of it. See, a knower of mathematics doesn't become mathematics. A knower of, say, political science or history or some other subject doesn't become that subject. Isn't it? It's only an acquisition. It is something you add to yourself. But here, the reverse process. The process is you get rid of everything that is accrued to you as an individual, as that entity which we call as I. And it is transformative to the extent that whatever knowledge you acquire of the self, you become that self. And that self, the Atman, is absolutely no different in any manner, in any respect whatsoever from the Brahman. Except for the fact that the Atman is conditioned and subject to ignorance. Whereas the Brahman is totally unconditioned and has no frontiers, no limitations, no boundaries, and is beyond ignorance in all respects. But essentially, qualitatively, the Atman and the Brahman are one and the same. So the moment you acquire the knowledge of Atman, it gets transformed into Brahman. This is the fundamental idea of Vedanta. Fundamental idea of Vedanta is that this particular knowledge, unfortunately, we are forced to use the term knowledge. Knowledge comes from the word to know. Know comes from the word jnana. That is why you have the English term called gnosis, which starts with a G. Gnosis, gnosis, is derived from the Indo-European language base of which Sanskrit is the basis, from jnana. That is the reason why phonetically, though it is the G is not pronounced, it is retained in spelling because this G is from the jnana. That is how it comes. So this is the gnosis. That means this is that knowledge which is self-transformative. It brings about a radical and total transformation in oneself, whereby one is totally free of all limitations, and the self recognizes the fact that it is no longer bound by any limitations and it is totally free. In fact, what we call as this I is actually an accretion on account of ignorance. So once that ignorance is totally dispelled, the I also disappears along with it. Because I is a creation of the ignorance. We'll come to it progressively, but this fundamental aspect has to be very clearly borne in our mind. So that is the reason why at the very beginning he is emphasizing that self-knowledge is the only means for emancipation. There is no other means. It is not a question of debate or argument or contesting and saying that also does this, this also does this. There are n number of ways and all that. No. It is not a way actually. Self-awakening is not a way as it is understood with respect to other things. Suppose you have somebody is traveling from A to B, there can be 10 different routes from A to B from a physical point of view. But from a spiritual point of view, there is only one way. You disappear at A and appear at B, which is the quantum way of transformation. There's a quantum leap. And there is a direct jump from A to B. See, from an ordinary, preparatory point of view, one may talk about a path. One may talk about a way or direction in which one is moving. That's why very beautifully in the ancient Indian scriptural literature, we find lots of beautiful examples. One is called as a Vihangama Marga, like the flight of an eagle or a bird. It's direct and it doesn't leave any trail. When a bird is flying, it doesn't leave any trail. That's the beauty of it, and it is direct. It doesn't go crisscross here and there and then fly to its destination. That's why we have the English saying straight as a crow flies, which mathematically between any 2 points, the shortest route is a straight line. Okay. Now there is another beautiful simile that is given, is that of the movement of an ant. That's called as a pipilika marga. So if you have seen an ant, if it is trying to cross from one end of the room to the other end, it will not go diagonally from one end to the other end, which is the shortest route. It will go along the borders, along the sides of that room, from one end to the other end it will go. Because it always wants a support, a protection. It always is looking for a way whereby it is not killed in the process. If it's trying to go across the room, there is always the possibility of somebody stepping on it and then being in the process being killed. But if you are going along the edges, nobody would, we don't walk on the edges and the ant is so small that it's not possible to walk along the edge and crush it. So that's called as a pipilika marga. All these kinds of ways and means are suggested only for a beginner, as a preparatory thing, only as preparatory. But the actual way, if I may use the term, is self-awakening, which is transformative instantaneously, direct and immediate transformation. You see, in the very first verse, he has put very strict conditions. Purified through austerities, one who has already attained a high degree of peace and calm in one's own heart, and who is most of the cravings are not there in him, and his only ardent desire, again in quotes, if I want, if desire is the word that is normally used, but it is more a case of urgency. A person who has that urgency for change. For such a person, self-awakening is the only means. There are no other means. It has to be understood in that context. And that's why I said it's not a question of debate or argument or discussing one against the other, which is better, jnana or karma or bhakti or that or this or that. It is irrelevant now. all these things become irrelevant. When you have some urgent requirement, you plunge into action and do the best possible action in that urgency. So that is what is self-awakening about. So in comparison with anything else, this is far, far, far superior and has no relationship to any other form of transformation. And transformation from a spiritual perspective cannot be progressive. Preparation can be progressive. Preparing to transform can be progressive. But the actual transformation cannot be progressive in any manner whatsoever. You may prepare yourself progressively. I may prepare myself. But when you're actually doing it like an examination in the ordinary world, I may prepare for 1 year for the examination, but the actual examination is only 3 hours and at one shot. You can't spread out these 3 hours to 1 hour per month and then have three months time to complete the examination. No, it is at one shot. But the amount of time you take to prepare yourself for this purpose could be any amount. That's of no consequence. Here now we are on the verge of jumping and diving into it. Therefore, the urgency for direct and immediate transformation. And the only way is through self-awakening. And as I said, Pakasya Vakhnivat is a beautiful term because Paka represents maturity, refinement, ripening, and being ready to drop off. A very ripened fruit, what happens to it? It will simply drop off from the tree. It no longer is held by the tree. The tree has no hold on it any longer. So that's the ripening of it. And what is it that brings that ripening? This inner energy, this inner fire, inner dimension, which is represented here by the fire. There's a burning, something which is very much disturbing for us. That is what will spur you to the right action. That is the meaning of this. Though the verse may appear to be very simple and the translation of it, if one simply reads it, yeah, okay, just as the fire is direct cause for cooking, so also knowledge is the only means for emancipation. And compared with anything else, this is the only means for liberation. So the verbal meaning is not what is important to us. What is important to us is to have an intuitive appreciation of the intent. What is being conveyed is at the cost of repeating. I am emphasizing the fact it is something which has to be direct and immediate. And this is the only way. Nanyah pantha ayanaya vidyate is another Vedic mantra. Is that there is no other path to go. If we borrow a term from Jiddu Krishnamurti, it is a pathless land. Truth is a pathless land. So that is the intuitive appreciation one needs to have when we are studying Atmabodha. Repeatedly, I am going to emphasize on this, and in every shloka, wherever possible, we'll come back to this idea because we need to, in a way, strengthen the functioning of our intuition rather than strengthening the functioning of the intellect. That part of it is taken care of in Tatmabodha. That part of it is very clear in Atmabodha because that beautifully gives you a very schematic way of presentation as to the whole structure of Vedanta, how it operates, and gives in a preliminary manner the definitions are all provided in Atmabodha. We have left that preparation is over. The second level, we are going to the higher level of understanding, which is the intuitive level of understanding. Okay, I hope I have made myself clear. And this will be the refrain. continuously I'll be coming back to this idea when we are discussing Atmabodha. This will be my refrain, or from a music point of view, what you call as the leitmotif, a recurring tune which keeps haunting the listener. That's what I'm going to do. We'll come to the third verse. I hope things are clear and there are no.
No, I think better you see the chat box, Krishna.
Okay, sir. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing the chat box, sir. Sunita Mirchandani, as Havan is a fire, please explain the greater significance of this practice. See, this is the same thing. See, performance of a ritual is prescribed in the Vedas as a karma marga, or karma as a way to attaining what one desires. So a havan or a homa or a yajna is performed for a very specific reason. There are some homas or some yajnas which are done for universal welfare also. That's also there. But generally, from the point of view of Veda, the Karma Kanda prescribes performance of Havan or Homa or Yajna. Okay? But what we are talking is a Jnana Yajna. That is an ordinary Yajna. What we talk about as Havan or Homa. What we are talking about is Jnana Yajna. Jnana itself is a Yajna, is a sacred ritual. The very understanding or awakening is itself a sacred action or ritual which we are going about. And that is the distinction between an ordinary worldly, from a worldly point of view, what a yajna is performed for, and what is done from the spiritual point of view. Manjula Devi said negativity also gets, but obviously, see, anything negative is a burden, is something which pulls you down. Which pulls you down. Anything negative is something which pulls you down. So it is inessential and it has to be burnt. It has to be burnt completely. Okay? So therefore it is important to understand the nature of negativity. See, even from a physical point of view, one can understand that energy which is negative is dense, is heavier, and it holds on to the person who is generating it. Therefore, it is more damaging to the person who is generating that negative energy than against whom that negative energy is directed. It does more damage to the person generating that negative energy than what one expects out of it. If I think that I want something bad to happen to somebody, it won't happen. The law of nature does not permit that. The law of nature from its karmic angle will take care of everything. Your or my wishing that something bad should happen to somebody cannot be operational from the natural law point of view. So all that negative energy will cling to you or me, who is the generator of that negative energy. And unless that is completely destroyed and completely burnt out. So that is the reason why the simple mantra of lokas samastas sukhino bhavantu, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. These mantras are given not for the heck of it, just for saying that it is good and it is, it has a very deep meaning. Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahisha. You are wishing that the rulers of the country, rulers of a state, rulers of the nation should be bestowed with great wisdom and intelligence. And they should tread the path of righteousness. Nyayena margena mahim mahisha. Go brahmanebhya shubham bhavatu. All the earth. Go means the earth. Go does not mean a cow. There are several meanings for this term go. Go means bhumi. Go means the earth. Brahmana means a wise man. It's not a caste or community. So the earth and all the wise men on the earth should be protected. Auspicious things should be happening on this earth and to all the wise men, because the world is held up. The whole world, the creation is sustained through wisdom. So go brahmanebhya shubham bhavatu nityam loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. This loka samasta sukhino bhavantu is the last line of the 4-line verse. The earlier lines are very clear. Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam. Let all the citizens, all the people in this world be good and taken care of. And may they be ruled over by rulers who are wise and who adhere to the path of righteousness, nyayena margena, thereby protecting all the earth, the entire earth, and the wise men on this earth. That is the meaning of it. The reason for this is this. Once you generate such positive energy, that also destroys the negativity. You need not work on destroying negativity separately. Keep on generating good. Keep on generating positive energy, which will overwhelm the negative energy and drive away the negative energy completely. So that's how one gets over the negative energy. And Janaki Ramji has coined this acronym UID beautifully. Urgent, intense, and direct. That's good to remember. And Ramchandranji also keeps adding to the acronyms which I keep giving during my various discourses, discussions which we have. I keep giving all this. This is a good addition to it. And Ramchandranji says, now I am getting what is quantum leap. Yeah, that the idea is that Vijay Lakshmi Magalji says, and then how does Shrapa work? You become an instrument for bringing about welfare. See, cursing somebody is not possible for anybody. Actually, there are two things. Truly blessing somebody or cursing somebody are not really possible for an ordinary person. It is only for the saintly and the truly wise people. They can truly bless a person and truly curse a person also. And their curse is for eliminating one's bad karma and bringing about the welfare of the world. That is the beauty of it. So, see, we might have seen, we may be cursing so many people in so many ways, but nothing really happens. That fellow keeps on thriving and doing whatever he wants to do, even though you may be cursing. Why? Because your curse doesn't have that energy. One is not capable enough to bring about that energy to curse somebody, because this curse is not something which is purely negative. A wise man's curse ordinarily is a great blessing for the world. It's a great blessing for the world. There's a beautiful story in the prior to the Ramayana, prior to the birth of Sri Rama. It is Parvati who curses Sri Mahavishnu. She curses Vishnu I'll not go into the context of it. In one context, when Shiva's consort, wife, goes to Vishnu and asks him to help her. Now he does some, actions whereby, though it appears to be helping Parvati, it actually creates what is called as a separation between Shiva and Parvati. The Shiva and Shakti are made to appear as though they are temporarily separated. Then Parvati curses and says, "May you be born as a human being, and you shall be separated from your wife, and then only you will know the pangs of separation." That is Parvati's curse. Now what happens? Vishnu, on account of that curse, is forced to take the birth as of an avatar as Sri Rama and suffer the pangs of separation through the abduction of Sita by Ravana, whereby he goes and kills Ravana, which is for the welfare of the world. You see, the whole thing is very complicated. It is not very simple. Cursing is not everybody's job. Neither is blessing. Neither is blessing. It doesn't happen that way unless you have the tremendous amount of positive energy. I can truly bless somebody and my blessing will become true only when I have the tremendous energy. And similarly, if I curse somebody also, it is not out of personal vengeance or some kind of hatred, but it is transformative. I want that person to be transformed. So he has to undergo a test. He has to pass through fire, which is not only good for him, but good for the entire humanity. It is for the welfare of the humanity. So that is how these things work. And actually, a lot of, deeper meaning, and there are several examples of this cursing of Shapa. Several beautiful examples. The esoteric meaning of, if we go into that Shapa, which can itself be a 2-day program working on the karmic, this thing from a cosmic point of view. One simple example I have given you is the curse of Shiva, Parvati, asking him to take birth as a human being and be separated from his wife. What is the end result of it? End result of it is the killing of Ravana, who is again one of the greatest dangers on this earth, because he is creating havoc. And there is another beautiful thing. Why Ravana is born in the first place? How Sanat Kumara curses the two Dwarapalakas, two gatekeepers of the Vaikuntha, where Vishnu resides, Jaya and Vijaya. There's a beautiful way for all these things. It'll take a lot of time to explain these things. But please remember that Shapa works only in the case of those whose tongue always speaks the truth. Rishinam punarajyanam vachamartho nudhavati. There's a beautiful verse in the Uttara Ramacharita of Bhavabhuti. He says, in the case of a Rishi, in the case of a great saint, meaning runs after words, he says. They will simply utter words. Meaning runs after the words. There could be words which may not have any meaning, but they will acquire meaning because they have come from a Rishi. That is how the whole Ramayana also begins. When the beautiful verse of Valmiki, Manishada Pratishtham Tvam Agamas Shashwati Sama Yat Krauncha Mithunad Ekamavati Kamamohitam. This is one of the first utterances which comes out of the great sorrow when Valmiki sees a hunter killing the male bird. When there are two of these crouchers are like swans or what you call as cranes. So of a beautiful couple of cranes, the hunter kills the male crane and the lady bird is weeping. And that brings out a great sorrow. And he utters a curse. And that becomes a verse. And that verse is the starting verse for the Ramayana. So you see, the esoteric this thing behind curse is, so vast that it needs great depth of understanding, and the esoteric meaning has to be, unraveled. You have to unravel the esoteric meaning of these curses. See, Vijayalakshmi Magalji quite often puts me into this kind of predicament where I need to digress and go into other subjects, but we'll come to that later. Prayer, Anchal Singalji, prayer also works the same way. Prayer, the intensity. It's again the same thing. Are you serious about it? And do you have that intensity? Or is it a casual desire? You think that some God will come and help you out and make you fulfill your wishes? No, it doesn't happen that easily. Prayer works, but it depends again on the intensity of it. And if it is more a case of a personal desire, it is left to the mechanism of karma to fructify. It's the mechanism of karma to fructify. So if I have a selfish desire and pray for it, then the scheme of karma will take care of it in such a manner that there is actually a saying which says, there is a curse which says, may all your wishes be fulfilled. If all our wishes are truly fulfilled, there is no bigger curse than that. Luckily, because our prayers are not so intense and our desires are also not so intense, they are not really fulfilled. But because the untrained mind has got such a muddy and complicated structure of desires in it, that if all that nonsense starts fructifying and gets fulfilled, then we'll be in great trouble. It'll be in terrible this thing. So limitation is a great boon. Let us not wish for anything which we don't deserve. Let all our prayers be directed towards the welfare of the world, because I am a part of the world. If the world around me is happy, I am happy about it. I can't say that I should be the only person to be happy in this world to the exclusion of everybody. Such prayers will not fructify. And even if they fructify, they put us into great karmic debt and we will be stuck here. But prayer at its own level works, provided there is purity and intensity. Quantum leap. Yes, you can say that the quanta is immediate and direct and instantaneous. Is pathless land. Pathless land in the sense, you cannot actually trace it out that way, that I am moving in this from this direction to that direction. Awakening, when it happens effortlessly, and there is no cause and effect relationship between the two. In the Bhagavad Gita, Adi Shankara makes it very, very clear that there is absolutely no cause and effect relationship between jnana and moksha. All jnana, all what the sadhana which you are doing for awakening is for actually removal of ignorance only, is for removal of ajnana. Action can be done only for that. The other thing, what one calls as liberation or moksha, has no cause and effect relationship with anything. If that were to be in some form related through cause and effect to anything in manifestation, then it will not be infinite. So it is always, as I said, a quantum leap from one state of being to another state of being. And that is what we call as a totally transformative experience, or what we call as liberation or freedom, or whatever term one may use. Because they are only words. We do not really have the experience of that state of being. The whole struggle is to prepare ourselves adequately to take that quantum leap. That's what we are trying to do. Beyond that, nothing else is required. We'll come to a point, a tipping point, whereby we are transformed, totally transformed, and we take a quantum leap into the other dimension, which is timeless, beyond space, and beyond causality. Space, time, and causation do not bind the Brahman, the infinite. It's only in manifestation we find space, time, and causation working. Okay, I think we have had enough discussion on this verse number 2. Shall we proceed to the third verse? I think the third verse is a simpler verse, which is a continuation of the same idea, which is given here, which says, Avirodhitaya karma navidyam vinivartayet vidyavidyam nihanyatyeva tejastimira sanghavat. Action cannot destroy ignorance. Karma avidyam na vinivartayet. Why is it that action cannot destroy ignorance? Because action itself is bound by ignorance. Avirodhitaya means action and ignorance are not in conflict with each other. If you remember, I have mentioned the sequence of ignorance, desire, and action. It is ignorance which creates the limitation, which creates the sense of lacking something in us. That sense is what drives us to desire in order to fulfill that inadequacy in us, and that desire spurs us to do action. So action essentially springs from desire, and desire springs from ignorance. So how can action be liberating? Action cannot destroy ignorance because action is born out of ignorance. And they are hand in glove with the whole damn thing. So the reason why karma is not considered to be as liberating is because action emanates from ignorance, because ignorance is what creates desire, and desire is what motivates us to do action. A simple test, I have mentioned it quite often. See, whenever I talk about this, I keep mentioning that if we carefully analyze our own thoughts and feelings, if we spend some time in quietude in trying to understand oneself, one finds a very interesting phenomenon happening. Every thought, in some subtle form or gross form, or very insidiously, very innocuously, very, what I would call as surreptitiously, is linked to a desire. Every thought is linked to desire, and every desire gives rise to some kind of thought, a feeling or emotion or whatever action or what we call as a thinking process. So desire and thought are very closely associated with each other. So they go together. Thought is the origin for action, isn't it? Thought is the origin for speech and action. That's why thought, word, and deed. So thought is always associated with desire in some form or the other. The thought itself can create a deception, can try to deceive itself by saying that my thought is very noble, my thought is for the great welfare of the whole humankind. It can imagine any kind of things. It can give rise to ideals. Jiddu Krishnamurti used to be very, very categorical about it and say a person with ideals is a very cruel and violent person, he would say. Because the ideal is fictitious. The ideal is a creation of the mind, which denies the actuality. The ideal denies the fact of what is. And the ideal falsely creates a kind of hope, a kind of anchor in order to move in a particular direction and think that, see, I am violent, I want to become non-violent. I am cruel, I want to become kind. I am sinful, I want to become a saint or sinless. These ideals of non-violence or saintlyhood or honesty or whatever it is are creations or projections of the mind of what it is not. The fact of the matter is I am cruel. The fact of the matter is I am violent. Am I able to see that truth? So this is the problem with us. So we have to be very, very clear. We have to come to that intuitively, that desire and thought are totally inseparable, and thought is the one which generates or which is the root cause for all our actions. So when they are not in conflict with each other, or in fact when they are closely associated with each other, how can action be liberating? How can action deny or destroy ignorance? Therefore he says, avidyam karma na vinivartayet. Action cannot destroy ignorance. Why? Avirodhitaya. For it is not in conflict or opposed to ignorance. Action and ignorance always go together. Therefore, the only way to destroy ignorance is through self-realization, through self-knowledge, through vidya. Savidya ya vimuktaye. What do you call as vidya? Only that is called as vidya, which is liberating. Everything else is avidya. The Upanishads very beautiful. They say, dve vidye veditavye, paracha aparachaiva. You have to know two kinds of vidyas. One is paravidya, which is transcendental, and other thing is aparavidya. Aparavidya is all mundane knowledge, worldly knowledge. And the Upanishads are very, very categorical, because they say that all the Vedas are aparavidya. All the Vedas and Vedangas, everything they classify it as all knowledge as aparavidya, as worldly knowledge, as mundane knowledge. Even the Vedas, the Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, all the Vedangas, Shiksha, Vyakarana, Jyotisha, Kalpa, all these Upangas, Vedangas, are all these things are aparavidya, it says. So they are very, very clear in their mind. The Upanishadic saints or rishis have very categorically said that all this knowledge, what is contained in the Vedas, is also mundane knowledge only. Very beautifully, you see, the book called Secret Doctrine, which is the magnum opus of Madame Blavatsky, she has written, it is published in 6 volumes, later on condensed into 3 volumes, running into thousands of pages. But at the end of the Secret Doctrine, she says all this is not truth. Because truth cannot be put into a book. Truth is something transcendental, which is dynamic, which is ever living. How can something living be turned into dead word? So all this, even Atmabodha, this text is aparavidya, is of no consequence from a transcendental point of view, unless we come to that tipping point. So if one thinks that through action one can get to it, it is not possible at all. What is possible is to come to that realization, to come to that self-realization, which alone can destroy ignorance, just as light destroys darkness, the dense, deep darkness. Timira Sanghavat. Timira Sangha means dense darkness. What is it that can remove this dense darkness? Tejaha. That illumination, that brilliance, that effulgence, that light. Only that can remove this darkness of dense ignorance. Just as Vidya, which is liberating, can remove or can destroy ignorance. So at the very beginning, the author is trying to make it very, very clear to us. Please do not depend on the idea that action is going to liberate you. Action is not going to liberate you in any manner, because action is bound, any kind of action is bound by ignorance. Then should we perform action or not becomes a question. And Shankaracharya in the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita very clearly says that karma is for Atma Shuddhi. Karma is only for purification. Any action which leads to purification, only such action is useful. It is only useful to come to that tipping point. It will only lead you closer and closer to that tipping point, but it will not bring about that transformation. Because action is not going to bring about the transformation. Purity will bring about the transformation. The intensity will bring about the transformation. Action by itself cannot bring about the transformation. So that point is being made very, very clear at the beginning. So what is the kind of action we are supposed to do? We are supposed to orient all our actions towards purification, towards exhaustion of karma, towards not adding to the existing burden and being forced to perform actions which one does not or should not do. That is the purpose of it. So at the very beginning, he is making it clear as to the role of karma. Karma by itself cannot remove ignorance, cannot destroy ignorance. And as a derivative of that, it doesn't mean that one should not perform any action. One is bound to perform action, but that action which leads to further unburdening of oneself and leads to purification, only such action is useful. Otherwise, any other action would only put us back into this cycle of birth and death, in this samsara sagara and kala chakra, into this ocean of becoming and into this cycle of space and time and space, operating in this cycle. So that's the only point. So the author wants to very, very categorically make it clear at the beginning that karma is not a liberating factor at all. It is only vidya. It is only that liberating self-knowledge or self-awakening which is going to destroy ignorance. This is the purport of the verse number 3. Okay. I think it's already 11:10 for you. If there are any questions, I'll stop sharing the content now and then go to chat. If there are Janaki Ramji, yeah, I think we discussed this in Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita classes, about what is action, what is right action, what is wrong action, and what is inaction. Karma, vikarma, and akarma. That is very beautifully explained in the Bhagavad Gita. We need not go into it now, but primarily the idea to be understood is that action which is self-limiting and which is bound by ignorance is not going to really help us. It is only the what do we call as purificatory process through action is what is going to really help us. Yes, Janaki Ramji, you have anything to say?
Action to acquire knowledge and then live as per that knowledge.
Oh yeah, action, acquire what knowledge? That knowledge which is going to unburden you. That is the idea behind it. Yeah. Anything further? Any other further questions, sir? If there are any further questions, we can briefly discuss them. Umeshji, last time you raised some other question. Is it relevant to our discussion today? Umesh Dhagaji. I don't see any further chat or discussion. Can we close the session for today? Yes, sir.
Okay, any more questions?
No further questions? Fine, no problem.
Great.
It is more.
So,
It is more. Yeah.
yes, that
Somebody-
means everything has been understood very well, Mr. Krishnapani.
No, I would take it the other way around. I think the participants are going into a deep intuitive appreciation of what is being discussed rather than trying to verbalize it.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Krishnapani. You really
Thank you.
are preparing us to take that quantum leap that you were talking about, to go into non-space, time, causality, okay? And therefore, I really want to thank you for being this light in our lives, dispelling ignorance and helping us forward.
I'm able to see
we look
Umesh ji.
forward
His speaker is on. Umesh ji, yeah, please. Your voice is not audible. Umesh ji.
Umesh, would you like to say something?
Yeah, he
Hear me
raised his
now?
finger. Yeah, audible now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Okay, so I wanted to go to the verse 2 that we did today, and you mentioned about Atma is equal to Brahman, but not in the two aspects. Can you repeat those two aspects that it's not equal to Brahman?
The Atman is conditioned. Number one, the Atman is conditioned and the Brahman is unconditioned. The Atman is bound by ignorance or Maya at one level, and the Atman per se does not operate on its own. It also gets embodied. So it acquires a set of bodies, as we have seen in the Atmabodha, the 3 bodies and the 5 sheaths and all that. It gets encased in this thing, and therefore it becomes Jiva. Atman is embodied and bound by ignorance becomes Jiva or Jivatma, and the totally unconditioned, unlimited, infinite is symbolized by the term Brahman. But essentially they are one and the same. They are one and the same. So Atman is a Brahman operating in limitation. That is the fundamental idea to be understood. And further to that, because it is operating under limitation and operating under the thing of Maya, progressively it gets involved into the manifestation and comes to from subtler levels to grosser levels and acquires the whole set of bodies and koshas, the shariras and koshas. All these are acquired by the Atman and therefore is bound here. When one is free of this, essentially, qualitatively, it is not different from Brahman. That is the fundamental idea.
Which in other words, the Atmabodha, which says that the awakened, the Atma which is awakened, which operates on the causal level, is same as Brahman, or is it still under the ignorance or under the Maya?
It is still, see, as long as it is bound, as long as there is no quantum leap into the state beyond the causal, it has to transcend all the levels.
So
It has to
in other words,
Yeah.
what you're saying is to moving from knowable to unknowable, only then it is same as Brahman.
Obviously, because see, what is known or what is knowable is possible only through the koshas and the bodies. The Brahman is unknown and unknowable. Nothing can touch it. One cannot transcend to that level through this knowledge. So it is in a state of, a timeless dimension. As I said, if you are stuck in this spatio-temporal framework, you are stuck and you are in limitation. That is what the Atman is. Once it realizes that this limitation is artificial and this limitation is on account of ignorance, it will take a quantum leap into the other state, which is represented by the symbol called Brahman.
That's.
See,
I think
Brahman,
words.
the Upanishadic definition of Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. It is that ultimate truth. It is that ultimate knowledge, if I can use the English term, which is not a correct thing. And Anantam, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. It is infinite. That is what is given the symbolic name of Brahman. Whereas the other thing is stuck in this. Atman has to essentially unburden itself and break itself free of all limitations. Which is going
into the vibration of the field of unknowable.
Yes, you are transcending that. You are transcending this, and that's why the beautiful this thing is quantum leap into a totally different dimension altogether.
But until then, we are still limited and conditioned, and therefore we are not same as Brahman.
Why are you worried about it now? But please understand that you are Brahman. Why do you want to say until then I am here, until then I am here, see, you are Brahman. See, you are perfect. You are assuming that you are imperfect because you have bound yourself. Don't feel bad about it. All of us are sailing in the same boat. We are all bound. But the moment you realize the fact that you are Brahman, that you are unlimited, that is what is going to spur you to become unlimited, truly unlimited. That's the reason. See, the saying that Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati, the knower of the Brahman becomes Brahman. See, there is I'll not go into it today. Next time I will talk about it. Please remind me. There is a Brahmarakita. You talk, there is a beautiful analogy of a Brahmara, a Kita becoming a Brahmara, a wasp becoming a bee. So they will come to that story. They will come to that beautiful Nyaya or syllogism which talks about it. So if you please remind me next time, I will tell you why these things are coined. They are coined for our better understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
It's good. It's good to go detail into this, deep into it, and not superfluously just understand the words. So I will refer this to tomorrow. next time.
Yeah, next time we will refer to it. But till that time, please live with the state of consciousness that I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi.
Yes.
Live with that consciousness, because that is what is elevating.
Yes.
If you go on thinking that I am bound, I am limited, I am until then I am like this, I am going to suffer, we are going to suffer only. But why don't you realize that I am essentially happy? I am essentially free. I am essentially Brahma. Mano buddhyahankara chittani naham chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. I am that. Pure consciousness and pure bliss. I am that which is the greatest something which is sacred and which is most auspicious. That is what is the term Shiva means. Most auspicious and most sacred. I am that. That is what is to be borne in mind, and that will be liberating. Okay, sir?
Thank you so much. Thank you very
The
much.
box, Krishnapani.
Yes, sir?
Thank you.
See the chat box.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that. Every attainment against odds is due to we are Brahman in essence. Absolutely right. Janaki Ramji is correct. Every attainment against all odds in life is because we are essentially Brahman. If we bear that in mind, if we hold on to that, that is what is going to be liberating. We are essentially Brahman. Yes, sir. So let us continue to live in that state of consciousness that I am that Brahman. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Sajni ji. Thank you again. You can close it.
Any more questions? If not, close.
Yeah, we can close, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishnaphani, for being with us every week and being our guiding light on the spiritual journey.
Thank you.
And I will now end.
Thank you so much.
Yes, all over the globe. Loka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you. Another program on Thursday. We have two programs. Kindly